to interact with Dr. Padmaja. And you had a very good interaction with Dr. Padmaja, and you have clarified several of your doubts. Now, in today's session, we have with us the teacher of this week, Dr. Swati. Dr. P. Swati, she is assistant professor in the Department of Psychology, Osmania University. Welcome, Dr. Swati, to this live session. Yeah, we are very fortunate to have you with us today. But I think due to festival, most of them are celebrating the festival and they could not attend. I don't know, the attendance today is very less. It seems only 8 participants. Apart from 3 of us, only 5 of them have joined the discussion. And I hope some of them will join as the course progresses, as this session progresses. And anyway, we are making this recording available in the course page so that those who could not attend this today's session, they can view the recording later at a later date. So with this, today Dr. Swati is going to discuss about the impact of stress, the psychological impact, physiological impact, and the impact of stress on emotions and several other aspects. Dr. Swati, I hand over this session to you. Please, and you may also receive the interactions in between or at the end of the session. I leave it to your discretion. Swati, Dr. Swati.
Thank you, ma'am. Nice to interact with you and even with the students. I think the attendance I can understand. Even I anticipated whether the students will be present or not today's session, but whoever has willingly joined, and we should not demotivate them. So let us start the interaction. Probably, as you said, others would join and we'll see how the things would go. Yeah.
Yes.
So, good evening, students. It's nice to hear from Saroj ma'am. All of you have been actively participating and you have completed all the required assignments and other things even much before the scheduled weeks. That shows like your enthusiasm and interest. So, in today's session, as it has already been mentioned, we'll be discussing about the impact of stress. So before I take over, do you have any queries regarding this, any clarifications when you were doing your assignment part or the assessment part? Did you come across any such doubts? You can put it in the chat box so that while I'm mentioning the basic concepts of this today's session, I will also try to look into those doubts that you were mentioning. Okay. Yeah. So in the today's impact of stress, let us see what is the psychological impact of stress that generally people would experience when they are under the stress. What do you think? What do you think is the psychological impact? All of us will be experiencing the stress. It is inevitable. We cannot completely overcome that. But only thing is we can try to reduce it, or probably we can try to handle it in a better way. So all of us experience, whether it is a minor stress or a major stress, it all depends, right? So as participants of this course, as human beings, when you were under the stress, what was the psychological impact that you had witnessed it, that you had felt it or experienced it? Can you mention in the chat box so that it will not be like an lecture, but it would be more like an interaction?
So yeah, we experience some headaches and sweating also. Sometimes it appears like
yes,
it happens.
So psychological impact, as Saroja ma'am has pointed out, migraine headaches, all your migraine headaches, if you take the example of migraine headaches, they are called tension headaches. So when you were severely under the overwhelming stress, naturally that will lead to the experience of the headache. Then sweating, excessive sweating, if you're under the severe anxiety or the stress, excessive sweating will be there. Yes, less concentration on the work. That is the most obvious thing. And as students, you might have experienced it in the examination hall, right? You feel like you are prepared, everything is fine. You gave a good reading to all the papers. And finally, when you see the question paper in the examination hall, suddenly like you feel like it's like a blank out. Okay. You don't understand like where to start, or you don't remember anything. So such kind of the things also happen when you are under the severe stress or anxiety. That is the reason like why we say like go to the examination hall with a cool mind, with calm and composed mind, so that like even if the question is little difficult, that will help you to think where you have studied that concept, what examples you have been looking into that, or you might be remembering like how the class took, what were the examples given. So this will facilitate you to really focus on the concept, and then that will help you to write the example. But unfortunately, maximum of the students, the moment they see the question paper, out of stress, out of anxiety, they will just go like completely blank out. So after coming out of the examination hall, then they start remembering all the answers, right? So this is one such common experience all of us face as students. Then unable to sleep. I think some people here, there are two kinds of the reactions. Some people, they're deprived of the sleep when they are under the intense stress. Some people, they oversleep. Similarly, with regard to the eating, either overeating might take place, or either they stop eating. So these are like some of the behavioral issues which we generally see. Like when we say like the most important impact will be on the cognitive processes. So when we say cognitive processes, I think by now you know what is a cognitive element. So it is like what you do with your mind, how you think, how you analyze, how you try to perceive the situations, and how you are taking the decisions, or how you are trying to solve the problem. All these elements come under the cognitive component. So when you are experiencing the mild stress or high level of the stress, naturally like the cognitive processes will be impaired. And even among the cognitive processes, the most important things are your attention, that is your concentration and your memory. And then if at all, if you have to deal with the situation, if you are the main important person there to take a decision in that particular situation, you may not be able to take immediate decision to tackle the situation. So 3 or 4 cognitive processes generally will be highly impacted under the when you are experiencing this kind of the stress. So why this happens? You might have studied under the physiological impact, how the hormones will be excessively released into the bloodstream when a person is under the severe stress, right? So when there is a high cortisol levels, naturally the cognitive functioning will be impaired. When there is a low cortisol level also, the cognitive functioning will be impaired. So whenever our hormones are in the moderate level of secretion, whatever be the hormone, only then we'll be functioning under the effective way. We can adapt to the situations in a proper way. Then why like one person becomes very vulnerable to stress, why one person is able to withstand the stress, that depends again on your personality. Like how, suppose like if 2 people are experiencing a fever, or probably say like some kind of a flu or any kind of affected with the virus, the symptoms will be the same, the treatment will be the same. But if you take the psychological issues, whether it is a stress or anxiety or a depression, each person will be reacting to the situation in a different way. The reason is here, like our mind is also involved, our heart is also involved, how you were trained, in dealing with the situations, the child rearing, the kind of the family environment in which you were brought up, your own personal experiences, how like as a child you have seen the parents, how effectively they were handling the situation, or if the parents are already like tension prone people, anxiety prone people, how they become like tensed with the even minute situations. And if you have seen all those things, naturally that impact, the environmental impact will also be there on the individual. That is the reason why no two people will be reacting to the stress in a similar situation. To some extent, it depends upon your genetics. To maximum extent, it depends upon the environmental factors. When we say environmental factors like your child rearing, your family environment, the way you have been exposed to certain situations, if you had good role models in the form of parents or teachers or peer group, how they were witnessing, how they were handling the situations, that impact will be on you. So number of factors will be focusing on how you affect the, how you deal with the situation. In fact, I don't know whether you had come across this concept of type A and type B personalities. Type A people, like, they take up too many tasks. Like they are very over ambitious and they want to fulfill whatever they want to achieve within the short time. So what happens because of this over ambitiousness, probably unrealistically they accept the things. They will not have the time. So always like they will be on toes. Always you see them like in a hurry. Though they complete the things, though they try to achieve their tasks, though they accomplish their goals, but still always they were under the stress because of their over-ambitiousness and unrealistic planning. Such people are generally like they are prone to get this kind of heart attacks, more vulnerable to this, more vulnerable to experience high levels of stress. Whereas if you see people with type B personality, they are also ambitious, but not over ambitious. They are realistically setting the goals. So they are more calm and composed. And the way they handle the situations, the stressful situations would be different. So whether you are type A personality or type B personality, you have to look into the situation. Then there are like type C people. Type C people, generally, they don't express their emotions. See, like when we say, like you don't be short tempered or don't be like losing your control over the emotions. Here you should know how to manage the emotions. We don't say like control your emotions. What happens is the more you control your emotions, that will be accumulated, and then finally one day like the person will be blasting away. That is more dangerous to the person. So you need to know how to express your emotion very positively, very constructively, in a very realistic way. Instead of being short-tempered, you have to analyze the situation, where the problem is, how, what goes wrong in the situation, and how that has to be stopped. So that analysis will give you, in a similar situation next time, how you have to react, how you have to behave. And sometimes ventilation is important. If you were affected with a particular situation, with any person or an event, there should be someone to whom like you can ventilate it, you can share it. Even if you feel there is no one available in that particular situation, at least put your thoughts on the paper. So all your negative emotions will come out on that paper. And later on, probably you can just read and then you feel like, really, should I really go to that extent of feeling very emotionally in a very small situation, a very petty situation? And then sometimes you just laugh at whatever you have poured out your emotions. But definitely, like once it is ventilated onto the paper or by sharing it with others, your heart will become very light and that impact will not be there. But many people, they don't express it. They look very calm. You feel probably they don't have those negative emotions, but inside they are burning. So such people are called type C personalities. And that is very dangerous because the health psychology research says they are prone to get affected with the cancer. So you should know how much to balance, how much to ventilate it. It's not like if you are not sharing it with anyone or if you are not pouring it out, you are very balanced. You should know how to ventilate it in a positive way, how to express it in a constructive way, so that you will ultimately find the solution to that, right? Then there are other people, probably you might have seen around, where they have everything in their life, but always like they will be complaining about something or the other. They're not happy with their life. They're not happy with the people around. But again, it's the underlying thing is they have everything, good family, good job, financially no problem, health wise everything, but always you find them with a depressed talk, with a negative self talk, and those people are more prone to become very depressive. So your personality, what type of a personality you are, that will also help you uh, to know like to what extent you will be affected with the stressful situations, or even if you are affected with the stressful situation, how effectively you will be coping with it. Then when I say like personality, then even the gender is another factor which really helps us a lot, whether men are more vulnerable or women are more vulnerable. There is a very interesting research related to this. If you see like till the middle adulthood or so, generally it is found that men have more kind of an ability to deal with the situations because they are not really emotional. But when it comes to the old age, it is men who suffer a lot, who become more anxious, or who become more stressful compared to the women. You know what is the reason behind it? Generally, in India, across the globe, but especially in India, it's ours is a patriarchal society. So what happens here? The men's identity is associated with the career, the status in the society, that is professional status. So naturally, they feel like that gives them the adequate confidence that they can handle anything. But what happens in the old age when they were retired from the job? They feel they become very vulnerable, they become very emotional, and any small situation, minor situation, they feel like they cannot handle it because the original confidence that they have in most of the situations is coming from the source of the employment, the career status, and everything. Whereas if you take the women, whether they are working or not working, they were handling not only the household chores, but also if they are working as a career woman, they know how they are exposed to the situations, how they have to handle the things. So in the old age, it is like apart from the career, though they were also retired from the job, but still the kind of the engagement that they have with the family, trying to solve the family issues, the family matters, and then in the neighborhood, the kind of the social engagement that they have, that will give them the confidence. And this shows like generally in the old age, if woman dies, the spouse, that is the man, cannot survive longer. Whereas if the husband dies in the old age, the women are likely to have a longevity more compared to the men. The reason is that they are able to withstand that. They're able to manage the coping mechanisms, though they were using emotion focused, but still the identity that they were getting is not just from the career, but the way they are able to tackle the situations both inside and outside the family. So gender differences are another important thing to how this impact of the stress could be there on the human beings. Then the next important aspect is like, as I have already mentioned, it is about emotions. So when we say like the major emotions will be apart from the stress, anxiety and depression. Sometimes like all these are interrelated. The more stress you feel, the more anxious you become. And when you feel like you are very helpless, you cannot handle the stress, that goes to the learned helplessness. You become very hopeless, and learned helplessness will derive that I know that I cannot handle this situation, and that will lead to the depression into the individual. So basically, like these are the psychological impacts. And in certain cases, like when a person undergoes any kind of a traumatic experiences, for example, if you remember the second wave, unfortunately, like those who were very strong psychologically also by looking at the situations around the neighborhood, among the relatives, and we have witnessed like how disastrous the life had become, right? Almost every family was affected with the COVID. Unfortunately, in certain cases, like they lost their family members. So looking at these situations, even the so-called strongly hardy personalities, that is, who can withstand the stress, even slightly they were shaken. However, if you look into the situations which were affected with this disaster, whether it is a man-made disaster, whether it is a natural disaster like cyclones and other earthquakes, or certain diseases like this, pandemic disorders, naturally, like those who were affected, for them it is a trauma. So post-traumatic stress disorder, that is PTSD, that is another psychological reaction to the intense levels of stress. So what happens in the post-traumatic stress disorder? Like even after the event has passed, still they will suffer with the nightmares. They will have those kind of the reliving experiences. Suddenly they may just wake up from the disturbed sleep, or sometimes they still feel that they are in the denial condition, that they talk to the other family members as if like the other family members are also still existing, even if they lost one of their family members. So this is called post-traumatic stress disorder, where that will have a long impact. They have to undergo the psychotherapy in order to overcome them. Similarly, like certain abusive cases, like as a child, if a particular individual has been the victim for the emotional abuse or the sexual abuse, naturally, like even as an adult, if they were not overcome that kind of a trauma, if they were not shared with anyone, even as an adult, they would be still suffering with this kind of a PTSD. So psychologically, these are the major impacts. One is emotions will be severely affected. That is exhibited in the form of high levels of anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress disorder. And then their memories will be affected. Either sometimes it could be retrograde amnesia or anterograde amnesia. That is, after a particular incident which has created a stress, uh, after the incident, whatever situations they have been occurring, they may not remember those. In certain cases, prior to this trauma, prior to this highly stressful experience, whatever instance happened, they may not remember that. So whether it is anterograde amnesia, retrograde amnesia, these kind of memory disorders will also be affected. And then like concentration levels, the attention, the significance or the focus on certain things will be affected very greatly. So this is about the psychological impact. Then what about the social impact? Naturally, all of us are human beings. We like to be in the presence of others. Uh, like fortunately or unfortunately, due to the technology, people feel they are connected to the people around, whether it is in the form of social network sites like Instagram or Facebook or WhatsApp. But when there is a particular trauma, when you are in a particular vulnerable situation, whether all these 2000 plus people with whom you were connecting online, that is in the social network sites, are they be ready to come forward and help you out? May not be in all the cases with all of you. So it is not just online friends who are important, it is face-to-face friends, not just Facebook friends who are important, right? So you should have at least a couple of good people around, whether it is relatives or your cousins or your peer group or whoever it is, a handful of good friends who can understand you whenever you have some kind of a pain, the emotional pain, the kind of the stress that you experience, to discuss with such group of people and then take their suggestions. It's not that you have to accept everyone's advice, but listening to the people and then analyzing whatever the advices they have given, and then accordingly, when you keep yourself into your own situation and then see like which decision will be better, which advice will be working better. I think that social networking, interpersonal relationships, this kind of the social support, all these things are very much important. So think over whether you have such good friends or good company, like at least 2 to 3 people on whom you can depend upon, with whom you can trust upon. So daily stressors, we know, like it could be a transport, it could be like reaching on time, or it could be related to money. All these could be daily hassles. And life stresses, like whatever we just discussed, some traumatic disasters, how they were affecting the lives of the people, or any cases like marriage or divorce that are happening in the family, that will be affecting a lot on even on the other family members, their health issues, any injuries, accidents. These are like major life stressors which will have an impact on the individuals. Most of the time, daily hassles we can expect, so we can uh, see like how we can adapt to those. But life events, suddenly they happen, which we may not anticipate. And in certain cases, that depends upon our lifestyle. Like people who smoke a lot, who drink a lot, we know like how they might be prone to get the diseases related to those alcoholic related or drug related diseases. Then it again depends upon the social network. If in case if you are working, some of you might be working, so how the work conditions, the organization climate, the working conditions, whether they are helping you or whether they are impairing you. If you have a good boss, if you have a good colleagues, naturally, like even if you have to equip with new skills related to the work, they'll be helping you out. But in certain situations, we know like how working in the a particular office, how stressful it is for the people, because colleagues will not be helping them, giving them the proper support. The boss will not be giving them the proper support. So even when you are working, you have to see that you have good acquaintances with whom you can really trust upon and depend upon. If you have that proper social support, naturally you have those feel good hormones functioning in a normal way, and then your immunity system will also be not affected. But if you, the moment you feel like I have no one who can really support me, whether it is at the workplace or whether it is at home, naturally like the kind of the stress that you experience will be affecting the immune system, and we are more prone to become affected with the illnesses. Then what about the physiological impact? Probably, you know, like as children, that is school children, we studied about the endocrine system, how it, what are the different endocrine glands, how it affects, right? So here, like we know that it is adrenal gland, the cortisol levels, they play a vital role under the, when the person is experiencing the stress. So here we have to remember that as human beings, as an individual, our body is not different from our mind. Body and mind are functioning parallelly. They are not two independent systems. They are dependent on each other. Suppose like you are suffering with a headache. Okay. The headache is the pain that you have with the head. Okay, whatever be the reason. But then when you are having a severe headache, even if someone is talking to you, you feel like very irritated. You feel like, please don't talk to me. You just leave me. Or even if some kids are playing, every day they do that. But you may shout at them like, please leave my room. Just give me some space. So why is it that if the head is having the pain, problem is with the head, uh, then why the emotion is getting affected, right? So that indicates that body and mind are interrelated. Similarly, you heard about some incident, probably your close friend or a very close relative had passed away. And depending upon your interaction with them, the closeness, you don't, after you heard about it, you get very depressed, you feel, you become very sad. Probably in certain cases, you don't feel like eating, you don't feel like sleeping. So why you are not able to eat? It is a normal physiological reaction, right? You, to the time, like you should feel when it is a lunchtime or whether when it is a dinner time, you should automatically have the food. But why you don't feel like having it? when you are feeling sad or when you are anxious, when you are stressful, if the emotion is related to the heart, why your body is also reacting to that? So this indicates that both are integrative, body and mind, and naturally, any kind of a stressful situation will affect both the body and the mind. Then, like, you know about sympathetic and parasympathetic system. Sympathetic system, like to a particular situation which is causing you the stress or anxiety, how your body is reacting to it. So either immediately you shout, or your BP might increase, you might be sweating, or you might be shivering, depending upon what the situation is. After some time, what happens? Like slowly the body comes to its normalcy. That is, the parasympathetic system is working. So the body tries to preserve again gain the energy to make the individual function normally. So this is how generally the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems function. But very frequently, if you are getting exposed to the stress, naturally the immunity system of the body will be affected. The body may not make the individual come to the normal situation as early as possible. Okay, so that is another physiological impact. And one system, if it is affected, okay, the nervous system, automatically the related systems will also be affected. So the nervous system will be sending the signals to the circulatory system. So the circulatory system, how the heart is pumped, the blood is pumped to the heart, the functioning of it will be affected. Similarly, the digestive system will be affected. So it is like if one system is showing the vulnerability and getting impaired, that automatically will have the impact on the other systems. And especially we have that hypothalamus, frontal lobes, then your thyroxine levels, all these things, like they will show a greater impact when a person is under the severe stress. So that is the reason, like we feel generally we should see that our hormones are not abnormally disturbed in any particular situation. Then whether you will be able to survive the stress or not, that also depends upon what sort of a food you are taking. So I think all of you are interested in the junk food, no doubt in that. But at least I think Corona has also made us positively transform into certain things. That is taking a proper diet, taking all the precautions, trying to maintain the hygiene in the surroundings. So in that way also, like that will have a sound impact on to what extent you can withstand the stress. So hopefully, I feel like you are continuing with the proper diet, the required nutrition that is required for the body as such. So all these things are the important aspects. And now this is, I just gave you an overview. Now you can ask any questions if you have any questions. Okay, Ushasri asked a question, borderline between mental health and illness, as stress is the root cause of illness. See here, like mental health is a very broader term. Stress is one strong emotion, or even we can consider stress both as a situation and also as a response. That is both as a stimulus and also a response. Stimulus is which is causing something, right? So, for example, like you have seen a particular disaster that is happening in front of you that has created the stress. So here stress is the stimulus. Sometimes the stress can also be a reaction. Like you were in the examination hall, the moment you saw the questionnaire, the question paper, immediately your stress levels have increased because you have done a very selective study, and whatever chapters you read, the questions are not from that chapter. So stress can be a stimulus, stress can be a reaction. So here, whether stress will be leading to a physical illness or not, that depends upon how frequently you are getting exposed to the stress and how your body is. Suppose already you are a vulnerable person physically, And then if you are frequently getting exposed to the stress, naturally the illness can be in the form of, we can say, like psychosomatic disorders. For example, like as in the beginning we have discussed, migraine headaches can be one reason. So if a person is very frequently suffering with the migraine headaches, generally, like the normal medicine is also giving, not giving a solution to the migraine headache. Immediately the doctor says, why don't you go for the scanning and other things? And all the reports say like everything is normal. But still the person has a very severe migraine headache and frequently he's having those migraine attacks. Then immediately the doctor says, organically, that is physically everything is fine. Why don't you see a psychologist or a neuropsychologist? So that is the underlying causes. Definitely the person is undergoing some stress. So here migraine headache is an illness which occurred, a psychosomatic disorder which occurred because of the stress. In certain cases, like people may have epileptic attacks also, right? They might not have had any history of epilepsy, that is fits, but suddenly the person under a particular intense stressful situation, the person started showing this fits. That is another illness because of the stress. In certain cases, asthma, respiratory disorders, or ulcers, all these things were generally attributed because of the stress. And in certain cases, especially if the people are belonging to the adolescent age group, the pimples, a sin. So that is also most of the cases because of the stress. So here the illness can be because of stress due to certain reasons, and certain disorders can be attributed to that. Similarly, like cardiovascular disorders, health-related, heart-related issues, then hypertension, blood pressure. So these also, again, it depends upon the age, it depends upon the gender, it depends upon the genetics. So this can also be attributed to the stress. Sometimes, like we see, like very engaged people, we read in the newspapers, but they die with the hypertension or with the cardiovascular disorders. So here, like if they were witnessing any kind of the stress for a prolonged time, probably they were not learning any proper coping mechanisms. They might not have taken proper focus on it. That would be creating a problem. But mental health is a different thing. For example, mental health, here again you have, if you were, I think you might not be from the psychology background, but mental health is again, number of disorders will be there. Only anxiety related disorders, then which need not be really requiring the medication, but we have psychotic disorders. Psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, paranoia, then bipolar depression, all these things, they are like, they distort, they were away from they cause the person from the, take the person away from the reality. So they have to be given the medication, the way they behave will be completely abnormal. So those are severe mental health issues. Okay. Then in certain cases, again, the suicidal tendencies might be raised among the people. If there is high levels of stress, if there is no one, feeling helpless, feeling hopeless, under those cases, the severe depression, the suicidal tendencies. So all these things also come under the mental health. So here we have to see normal mental health issues are different. Very severe mental health issues are different. If in the first stage of stress or in the initial stages of stress, if proper support is not given, if the person has not learned to acquire good coping mechanisms, at a later date, in the long run, these people's mental health might be affected if they were going into the depression or suicidal tendencies, or in extreme cases, like they might be having various other attacks, but not only because of the stress, they will be leading to the psychotic disorders, but I can say like stress might lead to the depression if it is not handled properly at the initial stages. And any other?
Yes, Trupti has raised her hand. Trupti.
Good evening, ma'am.
She has a question, a doubt.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
in a
Please.
scenario, in a scenario, if there are two siblings in a family where the oldest child gets married, and
Good evening.
good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. For example, as I've said, if the older sibling gets married and she is in an abusive marriage, and she's been constantly, going up and down to her maternal family due to issues frequently. Uh, so the younger sibling who's observing everything and who's traumatized with all the physical assaults or verbal assaults, will it traumatize the person, the younger sibling, and would it I mean, can we consider it as
I understood your question.
yeah.
It's a very good question, and whether it affects the second sibling, the second one or not, again, it depends upon what sort of an attitude this second sibling possesses.
Okay.
Generally, in certain cases, that will have a trauma. The person might be feeling like only the negative aspects related to the marriage. She may take a decision like, I don't want to get married because I don't want to face all these things. Or she may come to the conclusion, all men are bad, all mother-in-laws are bad. So such kind of the conclusions, there is a possibility to get into that. But whether the person takes those situations in a positive way or negative way depends upon her maturity, her emotional maturity, her way of analyzing the things. Suppose like if she is young enough, matured enough to analyze and then also help the elder sibling, that's a different thing. But otherwise, there is a possibility that at least the initial impact would be negative.
Okay, ma'am.
And then we have to they may resist the marriage and other things when they have to go for the marriage. So we have to do the premarital counseling. We have to show like how the other situations, other families, how they were happily married, like rather than only focusing on the negative aspects. The impact will be there, but whether it is a short-term impact, whether it is a long-term impact, that depends again on the person's personality and her emotional maturity and other aspects.
Ma'am, and a connected question, ma'am. For example, in that family, if physical abuse, even as a child, small mistakes also, the father hits or slaps, if that is what she's seen in the maternal family, and that is what she's seen in her siblings' family also.
The impact would be more than. So as a child, the kind of the abusive atmosphere she has been exposed to, definitely like here, the more the number of evidences in favor of her understanding of the situation, naturally like the negative impact would be more.
So what can we do in such scenarios, ma'am?
See, first thing is like how they were as a child, probably she might be very helpless situation. But once she has reached a particular age, is she not in a position to stop what is happening at her own house, talking to the father, talking to the mother, where the problem is, to what extent she can really contribute to that? To what extent, like if directly, if she cannot handle, either taking them to a professional or at least who are the elders in the family through whom, that is the extended family members through whom they can make the situation understand. That is one thing. To what extent she can contribute to the improvements in the family environment. If that is not happening, but here, because you have focused on that particular child, the second sibling, how she has to learn the coping mechanisms, not to get disturbed, not to be distressed in the situation, but how she can help herself from the situation. That is another important aspect. Then probably like at the time of the marriage, or that is like when she's going for the alliances and all that, better like she be exposed to the good families also, good examples of how the people are really happily married. So such experiences can also be shown to her.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is it not like Trupti, even the mother's role is important there? Why she has become very submissive? Why she has to give herself to this kind of an abusive atmosphere? At least at a later, as the children are growing, she should gain that courage to take the support of the kids and then fight with the husband also, right?
When one is financially not independent, that is when they become submissives because they don't have any other financial aid. I think that's one of the reasons.
But in all the cases, see, we cannot expect women to be financially independent also. Those
Yes.
who were not financially independent also, I think they were little assertive in those situations. I don't say all the people. So I think even mother has to think. Mother also requires counseling, has to bear. She has to be little assertive with the situations. Whatever happened has happened. I don't know what would be the age of the mother, but definitely she would be in the middle adulthood or something.
Yeah.
So at least now she should take up that courage to stop whatever is happening.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
So any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, actually, Swati, I have a question. It's an observation rather. Many people cry whenever they're tense or something in situations. Okay, some people they don't cry, they hold their emotions. So,
Yes.
do you think it is better to cry or not to cry, or how
Crying
one should react in situations?
Very good question, ma'am, because especially crying in the case of boys, there is a stigma related to that. Even if a small boy cries, immediately people make comment in the society like, why you are crying like a girl? But actually, crying is an emotion where both boys and girls or men and women are equally can equally experience that. So under the stress, automatically the tear glands will be secreted. Like when we discussed about how the physiological changes will come, the tear glands will also be automatically functioning and they will roll out. And it's better also. Crying is a good coping mechanism. When automatically they come out, that makes the emotion flow and then the reasoning things. When we are like filled with the emotion, we cannot concentrate, we cannot analyze, we cannot take a good decision. But once the heart has become light, naturally, that is after expressing the emotion, then they start analyzing the things, the reasoning, the way they look at the problem, they perceive the situation will be different. So crying is a good coping mechanism that should be followed again by the other problem focused coping mechanisms. Only crying will not give the solution, but at least it will help the person to relieve the kind of the stress that they are experiencing. Yeah, I think there are some questions. Projective techniques can help in drawing the disorders, but how much will help? See, projective techniques will be used in very rare cases where like the person is not opening up the mouth or not willing to share any kind of the experiences. So to understand what exactly is happening in the person's life, how the emotions of the individual are, we try to use the projective techniques. So it is not in always like diagnosing the disorders, to know the mental state of the individual, and based on that followed by various other assessments and then the clinical interview, we take up the proper techniques. It's not like we don't use only questionnaires or only projective techniques. We use many things in relation to each other. Okay. Yeah. If a woman loses their job, it is said could not balance. But if a man quit, seeks to improvement. Yeah, these are gender stereotypes. See, always like, though we speak about women empowerment and all these things, but definitely the same activity done by a man will be perceived in a different way and by the woman in a different way. So ultimately, it is like we have to prove by our actions. Suppose if a person has left the job, a woman has left the job, whatever the initial comments are, whatever you had mentioned, like she could not balance, she always has a problem, or she is fit for nothing. So all these comments will be there. But we should not get upset with all these things. But our actions should prove that really we have left the job for a better improvement or for a better position. The moment you become vulnerable, the society here could be, need not be someone whom you don't know. It could be your own family members, it could be your own extended family members, it could be your own friends or the colleagues who really makes these comments. So you should know how you have to prove it through your actions.
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
I come across a child, ma'am, of a 22 years child in my family, cousin's family. He has a little loss of hair, ma'am. So he was continuously stressed. So in such conditions, how to make the cognitive change in him, ma'am?
Okay, child, a 2-year-old child, right? Sorry, can you repeat?
Ma'am, it's adolescence, ma'am. It's 21, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, good evening, ma'am. I came across adolescent child, ma'am, 21 years. He was a loss of hair, ma'am, on his head. So due to this, is constantly in stress, ma'am. So how to avoid this kind of stress, ma'am? He's not able to focus on his studies and his time management and college. So is it cognitive any other disorder, ma'am?
You said loss of, sorry, your voice is breaking. Probably my network.
I guess the person is suffering from hair loss, and the
Hair
person,
loss.
ma'am.
Okay, hair loss.
and he's about 21 years old, I think.
Okay, see, one thing is our physical appearance matters a lot, and especially around 21 years, very young age. So any hair loss that will have an person might take it very intensely, very emotionally. But here, this child can be, that is 21-year-old, in the sense probably a graduate student. You can send them to the counseling. When I say counseling, it is psychologist, not a psychiatrist, not a clinical psychologist, who can make them understand, like with examples, how with bald-headed people are also, like, they are able to win the hearts of the people, how they have become celebrities. It's ultimately the achievement, not always the physical appearance, that matters a lot. So all these things have to be like discussed to that boy. So wherever you are, from whichever place, it is, you suggest like how he can gain that confidence and how that boy can be helped. Definitely, he requires the counseling support. You can do that. It's very nice of you, like to talk about others who require help. Yeah, one question is like why women are expected to balance, which is basically telling them to adjust and they cannot even vent out their frustration. See here, like earlier that is happening, I do agree. But now no one will give us the opportunity to ventilate our frustration or to show our talent or whatever it is. So here, like adjustment, definitely, if you look into the present situations, I don't know in what context you spoke about the adjustment, whether it is adjusting to the husband or adjusting to the in-laws or adjusting to the other things. The divorce rate is very highly increasing, and unfortunately, the kind of the cases which I have seen as when I took the cases from the family courts, most of the cases, suppose if you take 70 cases, out of 70, 50 cases will definitely be there. There is no particular reason as such to leave or to get separated. Okay, so here, like adjustment under what situation? Suppose like if the husband is a very sadistic personality, very alcoholic and showing the domestic violence, we don't say like you adjust to that person, right? Initially, probably we make an effort to see that the person is modified, probably trying to take the police help to modify him, whatever it is. But still, if there is no improvement, I think the person has to stand how they have to come out of the home and then take care of the person's life. But on the other side, there are cases where for simple things, even the parents of the girl or parents of the boy will add fuel to whatever is happening between them, and very blindly they support their own children, and sometimes unnecessarily also they add some more issues. So under those situations, the people have to think really whether there is need to adjust or whether they have to come out. So that depends upon situation to situation. Unless we know the whole situation, we cannot comment on that. But ventilating the frustration, see, always you have the right to speak, you have the right to express. If something is bothering you a lot, whether as a mother or as a wife or as a child in the family, you need to express it. When I say express it, you need not become aggressive. You have to talk to the people, take a situation, take a time, you say like under what situations are getting affected, who is at the fault, like whether it is the mother or the father or the husband, whatever it is, make them understand the situation. So and if you don't express it, or if you become aggressive in the expression, things again will become worse. So be calm and composed, talk to them one on one, like how you are getting affected, what is needed now. I think we need to take the responsibility. Probably in the first attempt itself, you may not be successful, but definitely like you have to make an effort. Another one is, see, you cannot go on saying like I am under the emotional pain. So you have made a comment, woman hides her pain with a smile, but she stands ideal for others, listening that she motivates. Uh, because you cannot complain on everything. You cannot make it to the whole world that you are experiencing a lot of pain, right? Unless the society needs to know about it. So naturally, you should know how to balance your own emotions. Where you have to speak, you have to speak. But it's not necessary to speak in front of everyone how the husband is torturing, or what are the things that are happening at home. But if you are still able to cope with the situations by adapting to the situations, and then by trying to bear whatever the pain that you have, and then still trying to be better, help yourself and also others, that's a good sign, right? You can make others also understand for simple things, whoever is giving the life or whoever is becoming very emotional, how you can still handle with a smile. When I say like hiding the pain and then hypocritically not living the life, but where the person is able to cope with the situations in a better way, not frequently complaining about her own life. Any other questions?
Ma'am, during childhood, if someone is molested or sexually assaulted, and that has been done by one of the family members, and if the child is asked to be quiet, not share it with anyone, um, and as the child grows and is constantly forced to face the perpetrator time and again, how would it impact the child, ma'am?
Hello, are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Now we're
Yeah,
able to hear you.
please. Someone left a message, but I had to leave the rejoin.
Okay. Ma'am, may I ask you?
Yes.
Okay, if a child, ma'am, at a young age, as early as 5, say, is sexually assaulted or molested by one of the family members, and when the child goes to her mom and says, "This is what has happened," in their own innocent way,
Mhm.
but the parents suppress the child's claim,
Yes.
and then constantly the child is forced to meet the perpetrator over the years. So it's basically causing trauma to the child repetitively, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
how can we find a solution to give her her own voice and fight for what is right?
The one thing is, unfortunately, most of the cases, uh, whenever the child as a victim tries to report this to the family members, especially when it is not a stranger and one of the extended family members, they take it very light. They may say like the child is wrongly perceiving the person, but if they are not understanding, and if the child is, as you said, repeating constantly and the trauma is increasing, at least if the school teacher, if the child is going to the school or play school or whatever it is, the child's behavior will be definitely be reflecting that. So here, like, the teachers also should be aware. The teachers attention should also be on the children, like if they're not behaving normally, if they're not mingling with them, may not be always like labeling them as dullards or anything, but whether any other problem that is affecting them, whether it is at home or sometimes like the it could be trauma like whatever you had discussed, or it could be a family atmosphere also, if both the parents are continuously fighting or almost go to the extent of that abuse will physical abuse might be there, or the feelings of separation might be, they might be discussing about, all that also will be having the impact on the child. So any kind of that psychological impact on the child, if the parents are not ready to listen to it, at least the child with whom the child will be in touch. Next will be the teachers. The teachers also should know like why the child is not behaving very normal, not mingling with anyone, why always looks as if he lost something. So at least the teacher should focus on that, try to talk to the child, and if the teacher suspects anything, probably calling the parents and then making them aware. And then if the school has any counselor, nowadays most of the schools are having the counselors, probably sending the child to the counselor. So these will be like the better means to see how best the child can be helped. But if there is no school counselor, unfortunately, teachers also, like most of the schools, they just go routinely, whatever the teachers are doing. Very few teachers really have that psychological awareness on various issues. Uh, so in this context, I really suggest like the teachers should be trained, the teachers should be really trained as to how they should be really identify if the child is having any problem. So such kind of trainings will also help these children. Or if it is not a teacher, if it is not a counselor, if it is not a mother, that is parents, but at least anyone, with their extended family members who come across, or if the child is trying to convey the information to the other extended family members, if someone should positively report to that. Otherwise, like it will have a long-term impact on the child. In certain cases, it will develop as a PTSD also. So I think
Unfortunately, ma'am, but unfortunately, in our country, we don't have the resources or the laws in a place where the child can be removed from that environment and placed
yes,
into a safe environment. So,
parents, especially mothers, also should be
yeah,
like see how the child is playing.
yes,
Sometimes, like the way the child plays, or the way that sometimes the children speak in their dreams. At
yeah,
least then they should realize like something is wrong with the child. And
yeah,
nowadays, see, even whether the child is sorry, whether the parents are literate or illiterate,
yeah,
because of these smartphones and the exposure to many
yeah,
things,
yeah,
uh, they have to have that some kind of a sensibility to what the child is trying to convey.
yes.
So any other questions? So nice interacting with you all, though very few students joined because of the festival.
Yes, ma'am. It's only because of the festival.
Right, right. So then if there are no other questions, we'll sign it off. How much time it is? 7 to 8, right?
Yeah, ma'am. It's 8-7.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Any other questions then? Hope all of you are enjoying this add-on course.
Absolutely, ma'am. Absolutely.
Absolutely, ma'am. Really, thank you, ma'am,
Quickly,
for
may I
very
know,
good.
like, what are your educational backgrounds? Which
I'm-
course you are doing?
I'm a psychology student, ma'am.
Okay, I thought so. Depending upon the questions that you are asking. Okay.
Yes.
Kavita, what is your
Myself,
educational background?
Master's in psychology, ma'am. I did the
Okay, all of
Masters
you
in
are
Psychology.
from Masters in Psychology?
No, ma'am. Undergrad, third year.
Okay, BA
UG.
Psychology?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all
Usha,
of you are from psychology background?
I can say Usha is
Myself-
also in my class. I think Kavita is also
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
psychology
Oh,
background.
okay. So hope then
Kavita is from
everybody-
MSc, ma'am. I am her classmate. Kavita is from
Sufyan,
MSc.
let's hear Sufyan. Sufyan को सुनते हैं. Sufyan बोलो यार.
Okay, okay. Linnaya,
हाँ, yes,
which
यार, वो
space?
तो है. वो तो है.
Ma'am, I texted so many questions
हाँ, Sufyan बोलो यार.
and still
Okay.
few are pending.
Yeah, actually, because I had logged out, now I couldn't see the chat box. Can you repeat? Can you repeat your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I
I'll
know, I
just repost the questions.
I'm sorry for interruption. From, uh, from B.R. Ambedkar, but during those course, I saw a number of your videos, ma'am. Really, it was very helpful, ma'am. Really, really helpful, ma'am. Your explanation was very awesome. All about that. Really thankful, ma'am. Really.
Thank you.
हाँ. Yeah, last year.
Ma'am, chat box is disabled, but I can most of the time during this the situation what Tripti has presented, that most of the time loud one only hurts and how to cope up with the situation, since a woman is not financially independent. Even though she know about the situation, she couldn't help her child. So in India, how a woman can cope up with such situations when she's not financially independent?
Here, one thing is, like now compared to earlier, women always need not go out and work, right? Because you are asking in general about women in India. First thing is, how many women are really trying to stand on their own feet? The moment they feel that many problems can be resolved, if they also start standing on their own feet, especially when they are facing some problems with the husband, that goal has to be created by the in that particular individual. Okay, when you are speaking about the woman, so that they have to really think.
You apply
many
directly
things
like
can be resolved.
careers पे जाओ.
Probably if I am not dependent on someone. The moment they start thinking about it, then they start thinking about what can be done. It's thanks to the technology and other aspects nowadays, everything can be from like from home also. If there is a will, I think they can really find the way also. Only talking.
But this session is quite interactive, ma'am, and we have got the most of the interact like how stress impacts basically human nature has been. We have discussed a lot, though we are very few in the class. But this is on air. Most of the people may see later.
I think we should target that.
Ma'am, to what extent that pranayama is helpful for stress management, ma'am?
It's a biofeed.
I'm extremely sorry. The
ma'am, one
voice is breaking because of the internet connection. See, one thing is once they decide how they have to stand on their own feet, then they can decide like what sort of a job they can take it up. Because with YouTube itself, many people from the rural areas, they are earning money. Whether it is just by making rangolis or through the cooking videos, whatever it is. So like the moment they decide that focus has to be there, that first I need to stand on my own feet, probably the rest of it will fall online. So based on that, they can think about how to stand on their feet. Okay.
Ma'am, to what extent pranayama breathing exercises are helpful to stress management, ma'am?
See, for all the normal types of stress, definitely like pranayama regularly, if you're doing it, that will have a positive impact. Whether you don't, even if you don't see the positive impact, there is nothing wrong in making it. Because for any positive effect, you have to continuously do it for at least 2 to 3 months. Only then we can see the result. And that can be done at any point of the time, right? Whether you are in the office, whether you are traveling, different forms of pranayama are there. So simple forms can be done even in the social environment.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So then we'll log off. Shall we log off?
Yes, ma'am.
Have any other questions?
What is your
Okay.
motivation for next session?
Nice interacting with you all.
Hi, Adrian.
All the best. Happy New Year.
Thank you very
Happy
much, ma'am.
Pongal.
Happy Pongal to you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It's an excellent session, ma'am.
Thank you.